He told me his ex-girlfriend was insane, controlling, jealous, emotionally unstable, the whole package. And I believed him. Why wouldn't I? He seemed so genuine, so wounded by what she'd put him through. He said she'd check his phone constantly, accuse him of cheating without evidence, call him screaming in the middle of the night. He painted himself as the victim who'd finally escaped a toxic nightmare. And me? I was the lucky one who'd get to love him the right way. Except 3 years later, I became the crazy ex in someone else's story. And that's when I finally understood the pattern. My name is Nicole Bennett, and this is how I discovered that when a man says all his exes are crazy, you should run, because you're about to become the next one on his list. I met Tyler Hoffman at a friend's barbecue on a perfect summer afternoon. He was charming, attentive, funny in that self-deprecating way that makes you want to comfort someone. We talked for hours about everything, books, travel, childhood memories. When the conversation turned to past relationships, he got quiet for a moment before saying, "My last girlfriend really did a number on me. I'm still recovering, honestly." I asked what happened, and he told me this elaborate story about Jessica, his ex of 2 years, who he claimed was pathologically jealous. According to Tyler, she'd ruined his friendships, isolated him from his family, accused him of affairs that never happened, and eventually had a complete breakdown when he tried to leave. He showed me texts she'd sent after the breakup, angry, desperate messages begging him to come back. He sighed and said, "I feel bad for her. She needs help, but I can't be her therapist." I felt sympathy for him. This poor guy had been through hell with someone unstable, and now he was trying to heal and move forward. When he asked for my number at the end of the night, I gave it to him gladly. I thought I was meeting a survivor. I didn't realize I was meeting a predator who'd just shown me his playbook. The relationship started beautifully. Tyler was everything I'd hoped for: romantic, communicative, present. He texted me good morning every day, planned thoughtful dates, introduced me to his friends within weeks. He told me constantly how different I was from Jessica, how refreshing it was to be with someone emotionally mature and secure. I felt special, chosen, like I'd won some kind of prize by being the one who could finally make him happy. But slowly, subtly, things started changing. The man who'd praised my independence began questioning why I needed girls' nights. The man who'd loved my career ambition started suggesting I worked too much. The man who'd appreciated my close family started implying they were overbearing. When I'd point out these contradictions, Tyler would look hurt and confused. "I'm not trying to control you, Nick. I'm just worried. You've been distant lately. I'm scared you're pulling away." He'd turn every concern I raised into evidence that I was the one with the problem. If I asked why he didn't text me back for 6 hours, he'd say I was being clingy. If I mentioned feeling uncomfortable with how much time he spent with his coworker Amanda, he'd accuse me of being jealous and insecure, just like Jessica. That comparison became his weapon. Anytime I expressed a need, set a boundary, or questioned something, he'd shake his head sadly and say, "You're starting to sound like her." And I'd panic.
Idea pulusiza.
I'd convince myself I was overreacting, because I didn't want to be the crazy ex. I didn't want to be Jessica, the girl whose desperate texts he'd shown me as a warning. So I made myself smaller, quieter, more accommodating. I stopped going out as much. I stopped mentioning things that bothered me. I walked on eggshells trying to prove I was different, trying to be the girlfriend who didn't become the villain in his next relationship story. But it was never enough. Tyler started coming home later without explanation. His phone was suddenly always on silent. He'd snap at me over tiny things, dishes in the sink, forgetting to buy his favorite beer, asking about his day. When I'd get upset, he'd tell me I was being dramatic. When I'd cry, he'd call me exhausting. And when I finally gathered the courage to say I felt unhappy and neglected, he exploded. He told me I was ungrateful, that he'd given me everything, that I was turning into exactly the kind of toxic person he'd spent years recovering from. He said, "This is exactly what Jessica did. She'd pick fights out of nowhere, make me feel like I was never good enough. I can't do this again." I remember sitting on our couch after that fight, genuinely wondering if something was wrong with me, if I was becoming the problem, if my needs were unreasonable, if I was, in fact, crazy. That's what psychological abuse does. It makes you doubt your own sanity. Tyler had spent months training me to believe that any discomfort I felt was a character flaw, any boundary I set was controlling behavior, any emotion I expressed was proof of instability. And I'd internalized all of it. If you're still watching this, please hit that like button. Because what I'm about to tell you is how I finally saw through the manipulation, and it's going to blow your mind. The revelation came from the most unexpected place. I was at a coffee shop working on my laptop when a woman approached my table. She looked familiar, but I couldn't place her. She asked, "Are you Nicole? Tyler's girlfriend?" My stomach dropped immediately. I nodded, confused and defensive. She sat down without asking and said, "I'm Jessica. We need to talk." Every warning bell in my head went off. This was the crazy ex, the unstable one, the one whose desperate texts I'd seen. But when I looked at her, I didn't see someone unhinged. I saw someone exhausted, someone who looked exactly like I felt. And before I could say anything, she said, "He's making you feel crazy, isn't he? Like everything you do is wrong. Like you're becoming someone you don't recognize." I started crying. I didn't mean to, but I couldn't stop. Because yes, that's exactly how I felt. Jessica reached across the table and held my hand. "He told you I was jealous and controlling, right? That I accused him of cheating, checked his phone, isolated him from friends." I nodded, tears streaming down my face. She smiled sadly. "He's been telling the same story for years. About me. About Sarah before me. About probably whoever came before her. And now he's creating the same story with you." She pulled out her phone and showed me something that changed everything. Screenshots. Not of desperate, unhinged messages from her to Tyler, but of Tyler's messages to her. Manipulative, cruel texts where he'd gaslight her exactly like he'd been gaslighting me. She showed me messages where Tyler had told her she was imagining his affair with Amanda, the same Amanda he now spent all his time with. She showed me texts where he'd called her crazy for being upset about things that were completely reasonable. And then she showed me something that made my blood run cold. "Before I found Tyler," Jessica said quietly, "I was confident, social, successful. By the end, I was a shell of myself, convinced I was the problem. When we finally broke up, he took those desperate texts I sent trying to understand what happened and used them as proof of my insanity. He showed them to his friends, his family, and apparently to you. But what he didn't show anyone was the months of emotional abuse that led to that breakdown. He created my craziness and then used it as evidence of who I always was." She pulled up social media on her phone. "This is Sarah, his ex before me. Want to guess what Tyler told me about her?" I whispered, "That she was crazy?" Jessica nodded. "Controlling, jealous, unstable. The exact same story. So I reached out to her 6 months ago. And guess what? He did the same thing to her. The same pattern. The same manipulation. The same gaslighting until she broke. Then he used her breakdown as proof she was always unstable. I felt like I was going to be sick. Everything made sense now. The contradictions. The constant moving of goalposts. The way I could never seem to do anything right. The slow erosion of my self-confidence. Tyler wasn't the victim of crazy women. He was the creator of them. He'd find confident, independent women and systematically break them down until they reacted to the abuse. Then he'd use those reactions as evidence of their inherent instability. And the cycle would continue with the next girl, who he'd warn about the crazy ex, while actively creating a new one. Before the story ends, I need you to subscribe and leave a comment telling me if you've ever experienced this, because what happens next is the kind of exposure that destroyed his ability to manipulate anyone ever again. Jessica and I left that coffee shop with a plan. We contacted Sarah together. Then we found Lauren, the ex before Sarah, and Michelle, the one before Lauren. 5 women spanning 8 years. Every single one had been told the others were crazy. Every single one had been isolated, manipulated, and gaslit. Every single one had broken down under the abuse. And every single one had been used as a cautionary tale for the next victim. We created a document. Detailed, thorough, undeniable. We included screenshots of Tyler's manipulative messages to each of us. We included our individual stories showing the identical pattern of behavior. We included testimony from mutual friends who'd watched Tyler systematically destroy each of our mental health and then blame us for breaking. We made it impossible to dismiss as one crazy ex. This was 5 women across 8 years telling the same story about the same man. Then we published it. Not vindicatively, not dramatically. We created a simple website called The Pattern, a warning, and we posted everything. We linked it on social media. We sent it to Tyler's current circle, his friends, his coworkers, his family. We made sure that anyone who Googled his name would find it. And we included this statement. This is not revenge. This is prevention. Tyler Hoffman has a pattern of targeting confident women, eroding their self-worth, and then using their trauma responses as evidence of mental instability. We're breaking our silence so the next woman doesn't have to go through what we did. The response was immediate and overwhelming. Women we didn't even know started reaching out with their own Tyler stories. Girls he'd dated in college. Women he'd pursued but who'd gotten away. His own friends started admitting they'd noticed the pattern but hadn't connected the dots. His sister sent me a private message saying, "Thank you. I've watched him do this for years and didn't know how to stop it." Tyler tried to fight back. He called us all crazy, of course. Said we were bitter exes colluding to destroy him. But the evidence was overwhelming. 5 women with nearly identical stories, supported by screenshots and witnesses. His reputation collapsed. His company let him go after several female coworkers complained about his behavior. His new girlfriend, the one he'd already been grooming to replace me, broke up with him after reading our stories. And Amanda, the coworker he'd definitely been cheating with, wanted nothing to do with him once she realized she was just the next target. But the most satisfying moment came 3 months later. I was at that same coffee shop when a young woman approached me. She said, "Are you Nicole from the Pattern website?" I nodded, suddenly nervous. She smiled. "Tyler asked me out last week. I Googled him first. Thank you for saving me from making a huge mistake." That's when I knew we'd done something that mattered. We'd broken the cycle. Today, 2 years later, I'm in therapy healing from the psychological damage Tyler inflicted. I'm rebuilding my confidence, my boundaries, my sense of self. I'm learning to trust my instincts again instead of questioning my sanity. And I'm in a healthy relationship with someone who doesn't compare me to exes, doesn't punish me for having needs, doesn't create problems and then blame me for reacting to them. Tyler? Last I heard, he moved to another state trying to escape his reputation. But the Pattern website follows him. Women find it. They protect themselves. And his ability to manipulate, isolate, and abuse confident women into broken ones has been permanently destroyed. My name is Nicole Bennett. I was almost the next crazy ex in a pattern that had destroyed 5 women before me. But instead of becoming his victim story, I became part of the solution. Because when a man tells you all his exes are crazy, he's not warning you about them. He's warning you about himself. He's telling you exactly what he'll say about you when you finally break under the abuse he's about to inflict. And if I can save even one woman from believing that lie, from blaming herself, from becoming the next cautionary tale, then everything Tyler put me through is worth it. This is what happens when the crazy exes stop being silent and start comparing notes. This is what happens when women choose solidarity over shame. And this is what happens when a manipulator finally meets consequences he can't gaslight his way out of. Tyler created his own destruction one broken woman at a time. And we rebuilt ourselves by standing together and exposing the pattern he never thought we'd see.